This conference will now be recorded.
Yes, you are. Is somebody answer?
All right, are we ready or no? Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, call me in order. It's now 3:34. Roll call, please.
Randy Johnson. Leroy Boat.
Here.
Kyle Jago.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm having trouble with my Wi-Fi at home.
Dale Schmidt is excused. Jessica Atkinson, I have not heard from. Annette Obinger. Here. Oh, Jessica's on. And Tracy Fluke.
Here.
Oh, there she is. Jessica is here. Okay,
Jessica's
thank
okay.
you.
All right, ready for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, any action on the agenda, any changes to the agenda, anybody? All right, hearing none, we will go on to action on the minutes from the regular meeting, September 14th of 2020.
Do we need a motion on the agenda to accept it? or
We
approve
probably
it?
do, so please tell me if I missed
No,
it.
that's no problem. We
Okay,
typically do on that and the minute.
okay, sounds good. So moving back, please, how about a motion on the agenda?
Okay, I'll make the motion to approve.
Okay, Leroy approved, and that we're gonna have you second, is that okay?
That's great.
All right. All those in favor, say aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right, so minutes, any questions on the minutes before we take a motion? Not, then how about a motion on the minutes from September 14th meeting?
I move that we approve them. This is Kyle.
I'll second.
Second by Leroy. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. All right, we will have comments from the public. Is there any public here? I don't see any in the room. Jason, I see you on there. Any comments that anybody wants to bring up that's not on the agenda?
I do not have anything.
All right. I just put this, I asked Terry and Susie to put this on the agenda, just quick introductions, just because I'm new to the committee, at least as far as being the chair of the committee. I'm Tracy Fluke, for those of you that don't know me. I was appointed for Mike's position, different wards 11 and 12, and he was the chair of this committee, as you all know. So then I was put into the chair of the committee. Kind of the ironic thing with this committee, yeah, this is like a full circle. I was a Parks and Recreation Director for the Village of Ashwaubenon from 1993 to 2005, and this committee started during that time. We had a grant from the DOT, and we did a walking workshop, and as a result, one of the results of the walking workshop is we started this committee. And then I was the chair of it for quite a while because I couldn't talk anybody else into being the chair, so I ended up being the chair. And then several years later, finally, we had some citizen members that became chair of the committee. So it's kind of fun to be back on it again and watch it kind of go full circle. So that is me. If you guys don't mind introducing yourself real quick, like just how many years you've been on the committee and what part of the city or the community you live in, that would be great. And I probably know most of you, but Leroy, start with you.
Leroy Boat.
How many years on the committee and where do you live in the community?
I live up by Pioneer School.
Okay,
How many years? Ooh,
you were on it early.
pretty many. Alexa's ready to kick me off.
Yeah. Yeah, you had can.
I really can't, yeah, it's been a long time.
Yeah, I say you are not. You get really
Yeah.
early. Thank you. Annette, how about you? How many years on the committee? Where do you live in the community?
I think it's 2 years. I'm not sure. And I live on Hilltop.
What's up? Okay. Kyle?
I probably about 4 years, maybe 5. I'm not sure. I lived around the corner from Annette. I'm on Cormier Road.
Okay.
I'm thinking 5.
5?
Maybe even 6, Kyle. It's been a while.
Yeah, it seems like it's been a while that he's been on there. And Jessica's on the call too, right, Jessica?
Yep, I'm on. I've been on the committee for, I believe, about 3 years now, and I live over on Gerhardt.
Anybody else? I think that's everybody, right? Because Dale's not here, Randy is not here.
Do you know Jessica?
I think I met Jessica at one of the other meetings, but I don't know her well.
Hey, Jessica, do you want to just quick, a little bit about yourself, just so?
Sure. I'd flip my camera on, but I have a whole bunch of names behind me that would violate HIPAA, so sorry. I am one of the administrators over at Woodside Senior Communities, so I work in Ashwaubenon as well as live in Ashwaubenon. I've been on this committee for about 3 years now. My husband and I have 2 kids that go to school in Ashwaubenon, so we're involved in different sports and athletic stuff with the village. He is on site plan for the village and a couple other things, smaller committees through that. So, yeah.
Thanks, Jessica.
No problem.
Anybody else that I missed? All right. Agenda item number 8 was like discussion from the committee members, and it's listed as bike and ped concerns. But what I was wondering if you could do, you guys have been on the committee, some of you for many years, maybe just tell about what one really good thing that the village has done that you are just excited about that is a bike and ped type thing that they just did recently. And then maybe one that you would really like to see done in the near future or in the future sometime, something that really is important to you, just to get a list and just get a feel for, what the board members are thinking about different projects or ideas that you have for projects that maybe would be good to look into a little further. So let's see, how do I start with Kyle?
Well, there's a couple of things that I've noticed out on my bike the last couple of months. Since COVID, I've noticed an awful lot of people using the Sand Acres Trail. I don't ride that street often, but that seems to be a very popular trail, and the Packerland Trail too as well. And then I am real pleased to see bike lanes on Cormier Road. I think that's a nice plus for us. I'm still waiting for those to get marked, and I know there are problems with that and people are busy, so maybe it'll be next spring. One thing I would like to see is I've started riding on Oneida Street because I've been taking Hanson Road, and there are bike lanes there, and I go down Oneida Street, and I was wondering, is that street wide enough that we could put bike lanes on there? Because that would add a lot to connectivity, because we could connect the bike lanes on Hanson, go down Oneida and get to Cormier Road, and, also Oneida Street. Usually if I'm coming up Hanson, Oneida, and I take Pilgrim Way and, cut over to Cormier near my home. So I guess those are the things that I like and the things I would like to see.
Okay. Thank you. How about Annette?
I like sidewalks. The most expensive thing to put in the village, well, not in the village, but I mean on the bike and pad, very expensive, but I still think we need to move forward on sidewalks on Cormier and other places in the village. And then the other thing I like, and I don't know if you saw it, Tracy, that we have that I'm impressed with, and it's the projections. It's, I don't even know what you call it. Dale works on it, and it tells what projects have been done, what years the projects are projected to be done, and then if they're completed. And I really like that. I think the committee has worked hard on that, and every so often we update it. So I like that, and I like the diversity of the people on the committee because each one brings up different ideas. Like Randy brought up, I think the the push buttons, and Kyle has the bike path issue. So I think it's kind of nice that we're kind of on the committee, and Jessica has little children, so she comes from that standpoint. So it's just a nice committee to be on.
Thank you. Anything you'd like to see in the near future that, a project or something that would really, you think is important in the community for bike and pet? Sidewalks. Okay. More and more sidewalks. Sounds
Well,
good.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you specifically, your number one priority for sidewalks is what, you Cormier or other spots too?
I would think Cormier on the other side that we discussed, on the south side of the road, south side of Cormier. Yes.
What about number 2 and 3 option?
I don't have it in front of me, so I'm not sure what they are. Even though I said it's a good sheet to have, I don't have it in front of me. But I'm sure that I would approve of those options also. So.
Thank you, Annette. Jessica, how about you?
I would say I really like just how we're starting to kind of connect with some of the other communities around as well. So like just even with like the different trail systems and kind of starting to create more of like destinations, like going over into De Pere or looking at going over into Alloway, trying to kind of get like a loop kind of put in there. So I really like that just because I feel like then it's more of like for us, it's more of like a family thing that we go do. So it's kind of fun to have like okay, we're going to take bikes all the way down into De Pere to go do something there. So I kind of like how we're starting to kind of strategize that way to work with the other areas and what they're doing so that we can all kind of benefit from that. And I guess as far as what I would like to see, I guess would be to continue to grow on that. I really like more of like the different trails that we can do, which I know is hard in Ashwaubenon, but I like kind of that aspect of it.
All right. Thank you. Leroy. Oh, I'm sorry. Anything else, Jessica? I'm sorry to cut you off.
Nope, that's good.
Okay, thank you.
I think since I've been on the committee, one of the things that I thought we really worked on really hard was the sidewalks. Like Annette said, we would need more sidewalks, and like what Jessica said, and I thought this was very important when I first started also, because I was a biker, was connecting the village of Ashwaubenon to Green Bay, to De Pere, and to extend. I know it's very hard being kind of where we are, but it's like into Hobart and and stuff like that there. And
So being a biker that you are specifically, what roadways do you think need more attention for connections?
well, like when I bike, I mostly go out towards the airport, so I mean, I'm not like Kyle where once in a while I'll go into De Pere, but I'm just an outskirt person, you know what I mean? I know we had talked about the Pacaland Trail being extended, on past Fernando. That'd be nice,
Be on our side of the street if that happens, because I don't think Hobart's in any hurry to do that.
Yeah, there was talk there for a while.
Yeah, they were thinking about it. But
Yeah.
I have a feeling with COVID that's.
Yeah, well.
But
And one thing I wish would have happened and never did, I think everybody around here knows how much I felt about the bridge. I don't want to dwell on that, but I think that would have really
Bridge
been.
where?
What?
Bridge over 172?
Yeah,
Yeah, that was a tough one.
I think that would have been
I've been an asset. Yeah.
yes, it would have been.
Yeah.
And I know we're still talking about Babcock, but at the time when I started, with Babcock was like 25 years out, 25 years out, I think it wasn't it 20 or 25 years, Rex?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it's I still feel that it's a dirty shame. And it's been a sore thing for me ever since I was working on it with some other people. Rex and, so, I mean, I still feel bad about that.
Me too.
Yeah.
Um,
And it would have been used too.
it would, certainly would have, yes.
And one of the persons that probably would have used it and never said he would have was on the board. And I'm not gonna mention no names, but he's not with us anymore. But he would have been on there, I believe it.
Yeah, a lot of people would have used it, but,
Yes,
yeah,
he would
but unfortunately it didn't come to be, so.
have. I know.
Yeah.
I'll drop it right there.
Yeah. Rick, how about you, Rex? Anything on your end? I mean, you're liaison to the committee. What's some of the things that you think that happens sooner than or recently, or that you'd like to see?
Well, I don't want to like steal the thunder when I give my reports
Okay.
later on.
That's fine.
Uh,
Okay.
I'll talk more about what's coming up.
Okay.
I think, obviously more stuff around the Titletown district, to move people around safely and getting them off the roads. And I think, in certain spots, that's going to be happening, within the next, I'd say within the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
And then several trail projects, which I'll talk about a little bit more during the reports.
Okay. All right. And for me, I guess the one thing that I was so excited to see that came out recently was the bike lanes on Hanson Road. I've been waiting for those for a long time because they were in the plan when they redid the bridge. This was going, so I bet you it's been 8 years waiting for that to happen. So I was very excited about that because the village, it's nice to have east-west and north-south corridors that people can bike or walk on. And like Kyle had mentioned, Oneida Street, when you think of our community, we have Broadway, which has bike lanes on it, and we have Packer Line that has a trail, but there's really nothing else that goes north-south through our community that has good bike accommodations on it. So Oneida Street, Holmgren Way, one of those would be like ideal to have something on, because otherwise you're really going to the outskirts of the village to get to that. But and the same thing when you're talking east-west. Now we have Hanson, we have Cormier that has bike lanes on it now. So you do have access a little bit that way, but Hanson Road was the one that I was very excited about getting the bike lanes. And one of the things that I would love to see in the future is for our trails to be plowed in the winter, because they really, especially with COVID and everything that's going on, the use of trails, not only in the region, but throughout the nation has just, in some places, it's like quadrupled. And for us to have those trails open year round would be a benefit. The Foxborough Trail is now clearing theirs in the winter, and their numbers have gone up considerably on that. So so that would be my future thing, that to have our trails plowed and accessible and usable in the winter months.
I do have one other thing.
Yes.
And it's on the agenda. It's on the agenda, sooner or later where it's gonna happen. And is the sidewalks on Hanson Road, on the south side of Hanson Road. I met 2 people walking down Hanson Road when I came in here.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm not up and down that road that much anymore like I used to be, but every time I go down that road, and it's always, there's people walking
Yeah.
that all the time.
Well, because the multifamilies on the south side of that road. So
Yeah.
people, unfortunately, are too lazy to walk across the street and get on the sidewalk on the
At
north
least
side.
from Foxcroft to.
Yeah,
Yes, just to get them, because they will walk in the bike lane.
Yep.
Counterflow.
I see people walking with bags from Quick Trip and
Yes.
Fresh Time.
Yep, all the time.
All the time.
Yeah, so that would be huge.
I think that was coming up too, wasn't it, Rex? I mean, it was just that one,
It's
that one
on
section.
the horizon, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, anybody, anything else that you just really need to share on that end?
If it wasn't for COVID, we'd probably be looking at some kind of work on those things next year. But it's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, next agenda item then, if no one has anything else, site plan review. Kyle, is there anything on your end from site plan review?
There were 2 things that came up last month. There's going to be, and I was pleased to see this, there's going to be senior housing in Mike McCarthy Way, the 600 block of Mike McCarthy Way. There are going to be, looks like, some homes and some apartments. And when I drilled down into the plans, I'm kind of figuring out how to use those. I was pleased that they included a bike parking station. and that the sidewalks were 6-foot sidewalks, 6 feet wide. So I was happy to see the sidewalks were that wide. So I did comment them on that. And my only other comment was that I asked that the bike parking station be compatible with the Association of Pedestrian and Bicycle Professional Guidelines. They have some nice examples of bike parking. So that was my comment on there. And then in the Orchards, which is that apartment complex across from Parkview School, they are doing a rehabilitation there, not necessarily of the buildings, but of the grounds. You know, they're moving some steps and taking sidewalks out and entrances. So each of the buildings, and I guess I didn't realize that there's 6 buildings and they're each like in clusters of 3 with a courtyard on the inside. And I asked that they consider putting some secure bike parking inside the courtyards for each of those.
Sounds good. Anything else or any other ones, Kyle?
Those were the only 2 last month.
Okay. Thank you. Then item 10 is action items. Jeremy, Rex, you want to go through those?
Okay, so
Looking at Jeremy.
we're looking at the project update this evening.
Yes.
So a little bit about what we've got coming down the pike here. Let's talk about the Ashwaubenon River Trail. So right now, if you've driven down Broadway, you probably see a lot of construction happening already at Alden Station. If you haven't, they've got several buildings built already, and in fact, it seems like one just got built over the weekend. They're moving fast on those. We are taking the Ashwaubenon River Trail, which runs from the marina currently to the south side of Bay Harbor Condominiums. We're going to be looping that trail around Alden Station and up to Broadway. The gravel's already laid for that, or at least first course of gravel. They'll probably have to touch it up in the spring again when they actually build the trail after some of the housing and other things are done. But that'll be done next year. And then as part of the Ashwaubenon River Trail, we're working on putting a bridge over Ashwaubenon Creek from the corner of Alden Station across the creek into Ashwaubenon Park. That phase, the landing in Ashwaubenon will then connect to the northern part of the lake parking lot. Sorry, I need to get a glass of water. When you're talking to you.
So dry. Yeah. I did walk the trail at Alden Station because, like Rex said, it is graveled in right now. I maybe shouldn't have been back there, but I was up there anyway. It is nice. It's right adjacent to the river, and you can see where exactly where it went through. Unfortunately, with that big rain and they're building those houses, a lot of that dirt washed over the trail, so it's harder now because it's got mud on top of it. But I'm sure they'll clean it up. And
I certainly hope so.
Yeah, I'm sure they will. Yeah.
So we've got that going on. We're working with Grafe. In fact, we have a meeting this Thursday here in the village boardroom with the residents along Broadway to talk about that bridge. Obviously, we want to hear their concerns. Just because the bridge across that creekway, a pedestrian bridge, would impact them if they are boaters. So we need to try and figure out what we can do for the height of the bridge, for the clearance, so that people can, if they have a boat, they can still get a boat underneath it. And that's going to be a big deal because typically you go 5 feet above ordinary high water mark. We can probably go 6 or 7 feet before we start to have major cost issues and space issues, because the higher you go, the farther out you have to go on the landings on each side. Doesn't matter too much about Ashwaubenon. We've got plenty of room there to fit things in. Obviously, at Alden Station, we do not have a lot of room. So there's a lot of discussion that needs to happen, I think, with the folks that live along Broadway there, in terms of how we're gonna work that out. But Grafe is going to be doing the designing of the bridge. Where we've already, they are working with the DNR on getting different soil samplings in the river to find out how deep they'd have to put the pilings. A lot of things are happening right now. If things go well, we're looking at probably a fall of 21 start of construction with completion in 22. We've applied for a couple of grants. We've applied for a coastal management grant. We've applied for a sport fish restoration grant, which would allow us to have a fishing bump out on the bridge. That's a DNR grant. So we'll see what happens there. Interestingly, literally the day I was turning in the grant for the DNR and the village board had approved something else with the trail. I got a call from Brown County, from Matt Creasy, who's the director of Brown County Parks. And he said, "What's the status of your bridge?" And I said, "Funny you should say that. We're working on it right now." And he says, apparently the Rec and Ed committee for Brown County would like to move up the timeline on putting in that trail and extending it into the Brown County Fairgrounds. It was a little bit, it was a later phase. They wanted to get some other stuff done there first. But apparently they see this as more of a low-hanging fruit, with grant opportunities and things like that. So that would mean we move up our timeline, which would, again, it all goes with how much money we have and what grants we get. But then our next step, with that being said, is to start looking at the next phase already, which is putting the trail in from the parking lot along the riverfront, the north parking lot of the lake, along the riverfront behind the lake, and then pushing it to the southeast corner of Ashwaubenon, behind New Water, behind the sewage treatment plant, which we've already met with Tom Sigmund a couple of times on. He's not exceptionally excited about it, but he knows that it's probably going to happen. They've had it earmarked. It's all about security right now, because they would have to make some dollar expenditures if we put the trail back there, to make their facility more secure, since now there's people going to be walking behind there. And then eventually, obviously into Brown County Fairgrounds, and then it's up to the pier of where it goes. Hopefully then the thought is to the Prokosky boat launch and up to the ice center, and connecting to the bike lanes that are in Broadway. Kind of right by where the parking lot is for the ice center, if you guys know where I'm talking about there. So the long range plans, that's it. But the thing is, right now, the phase we're in now is the trail is almost ready to be paved at Alden Station. They just don't want to put the trail in until they figure out where everything needs to go for the bridge landing on that side. So we're working through a few things there, and we're excited about that. That was the easy one. If it's considered
Before
easy.
he goes on to the other ones, does anybody have any questions on the Ashwaubenon Trail at Alden Station or the bridge at all, or any comments on either of those before Rex goes to the other projects? Other project?
10-foot wide trail, 14-foot wide bridge.
I have a question on the trail at Alden Station, and I know you and I have talked about it. The trail wraps around the whole development, and then it comes back out to Broadway, basically at Hanson Road, where Hanson Road runs into Broadway. And they put a curb cut in for that trail to come out to Broadway and for people to move then onto Broadway, north or south, or whichever way, east or west. I talked to Aaron about this a little bit, but the trail stays along the south property line, and then it hits the trail a bit south of where the curb cut is. And I talked to Aaron to see if, instead of the trail coming straight to the sidewalk, they could curve it around and bring it to where the access point is, or the curb cut is.
We'd be better off just making another curb cut.
Yeah, but I was just thinking,
Because
just the trail.
I asked the same thing on that. I don't know and I don't know what Aaron told you, but the reason, again, the reason they did it where it is so that people can cross the street if they want to go west. But that doesn't do anything for the people that are coming up Hanson going east towards the river, because then they're gonna cross the street and then they're gonna have to like make a loop around, which I still see them then using the private driveway of the house on the corner, which is what we wanted to try and avoid. So
Right.
so I quite honestly, Tracy, when the way I see it is we're better off at some point in the next year or two when that trail is doing another curb cut and just having 2 curb cuts. One for those that want to go west and then one for those coming from the west going east. That way, you know what I mean? That way you've got 2 spots then, and versus trying to get people to funnel. My opinion. But that was the reason they put it where it was, and
I mean,
that was not caught.
it does provide access. I mean, you can go westbound, obviously, fairly easy. You can go north and south out of there easily because there's bike lanes. But the one thing I was thinking, you have a 10-foot wide trail coming and dead ending at a sidewalk without a curb cut. So you're going from a larger trail system to a smaller sidewalk. And my discussion with Aaron was just that if you have a 10-foot trail that goes to, because that access point is 10 feet. So you would have going to a lake type size. So that was my only thought on that if they just thought it around, and I see what you're seeing too, but from that access point, you really can go almost every direction, but it is a bit of a challenge. And if you're walking, you can just hop on the sidewalk that's right there and go up and down either way.
Yeah,
So that was
it needs some massaging still.
Yes. Any other comments on either of those 2, anybody, or questions? Okay, then you on West Main.
Yeah, West Main Avenue. So this is a frustrating one because it's been frustrating for years because we kept on getting pushed on that. Basically, we've been trying for a couple of years to get the West Main Trail connection off the, completed from Sand Acres Drive to Highway 41 traffic circles. A lot of it had to do with the amount of property that's there. It's all private property. I think there's 10 or 11 parcels that's there. We have been applying it. It's going to be it's going to be a really expensive stretch. There's a ton of utilities, a ton of fiber optic. There's signs that need to be moved. I mean, business signs, not like street signs. There's a lot of things that need to happen there. There's utility lines, utility poles that need to be moved. So we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars just in utility costs, relocation, maybe even more than that. I mean, it's astronomical. And WPS is trying to tell us not to do it because you can't just dig one trench. You have to dig multiple trenches because the other lines can't be within a certain distance of the WPS main power line, which is buried along that stretch. So then there has to be multiple trenches, and all the lines need to be certain distances apart and encased, and it's a biggie just because of how developed and how many utilities are along that stretch already. So we had a meeting with all the utility companies. I don't know, about 2 months ago or so. And of course, they're not going to be excited about doing something like that. But basically they let us know how difficult it would be and the amount of money that would be expended for that. Unfortunately, we don't have any grant money. There were some concerns back and forth. I think I've told this story before. It's kind of the chicken or the egg. If you apply for the grant, you're supposed to have all your right-of-way in hand. They won't consider the grant unless you have your right-of-way agreement signed. The village board said, well, we're not going to buy the right-of-way and do all that right-of-way work if we don't even know we're going to get the grant. So it's a catch-22 of a circle type of thing. So we've been through 2 cycles of DOT grant applications for multimodal transportation. And we got denied on both of them. The main detractor for both of them was we didn't have the right of way in hand. So finally, we were given the okay. It's like, all right, you know what? Go ahead, buy the right of way. Well, we waited this long, and quite honestly, our timeline has become near because we need to close TIF out. And so now there's not a full amount of time to close the TIF out. So really, what can we do in about a year? Because that's we've got 1 year that's supposed to actually be closed out in the spring, and our finance director has said he can possibly extend it another year. So anything that needs to be done on Main now needs to be done in 2021. This would be with a combination of TIF 4 funding as well as park development funding. So trying to make some kind of lemonade out of lemons, and not knowing we're not going to be able to do the whole stretch at this time around because we don't have any grant money, and the cost of everything that will need to be done is we're going to, at this point, we're working on extending the West Main Avenue Trail from Sand Acres Drive up to Ridge Road and stopping it at Ridge Road at this point. That's still a decent stretch. It's still quite a bit of utility relocation work. Challenge there is also there's a creekway that goes underneath the roadway, so we're going to have to put in a box culvert that the trail will need to go on. So there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. It's still going to be a challenge to do it and get everything designed so that construction can start next year and get bid and be done. But that being said, that's where we're moving forward right now with the West Main Avenue Trail. Not exactly where we wanted it to go and not the distance we wanted it to go, but we've got another piece that we're working on, and that's it. So with the main. So I wish I had better news for everyone on the West Main Avenue Trail. It's been, you know, it's been a process, I guess, but.
Well, and it's great that you have a piece of it. You know, it's like, I know you wanted to get all the way down to the roundabouts, but you know, stuff comes in pieces, and it's not like it's a done deal. I mean, you can still look at that whole corridor and say, okay, is there another way to handle this or to tackle it that we still can do what we want to do with that area? So at least we're doing some.
Yep, and to me, you can do that in 2 sections.
Absolutely.
In the future. You can go from Ridge Road then to Arts.
Way or
Arts. I think Arts.
I can't think where Arts is.
It's that little tiny cul-de-sac just before you hit the van property on top of the hill.
Yep.
And that is where you should know that's where the Sand Acres Park Trail, when the vans eventually sell their farmland for development, the Sand Acres Park Trail, which is a crusher dust trail, that will eventually go to that cul-de-sac and pop out there. So that would be like, if we divided that still into 2 more sections, that would be 1 section, and then from Arts Lane to 41, which is basically the van property, a big creek crossing, which is quite honestly, that's got to be a 2-year project just to get through the DNR processes, because you have to drill pilings in the creek and do environmental assessments, you know, there's a few reasons why we're only going as far as we are.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
With the money that we have right now.
Yeah.
So, but, you know, we've already talked, the land across from Holcher Brothers is where the current sidewalk ends coming from the pier. It's owned by Oneida Nation. We've already talked with Oneida Nation, and they're good with us putting a trail there as long as we don't have to take any more of their property to put it on, which we haven't even figured out yet. You know, and then the other option too, and Trace and I have talked about this a little bit, is potentially, because there's so many utilities to be relocated and things that need to be moved, big things that need to be moved, potentially you can put a sidewalk versus a trail for that final stretch, which isn't ideal, but it allows people a safer access point. And where that saves us money, if we do that, is we wouldn't have to build a pedestrian bridge. Then there's already a sidewalk on the south side. It's curbside, but it's still a sidewalk going across the bridge. And And you can use that as part of that connection at some point in the future if we're able to eventually get that project done.
Oh, why is that? Is it a standard sidewalk size there? Oh, God, I never noticed that.
Yeah, there's nothing connecting it to it on
Yeah,
each side,
so
so
you just
no
don't-
one
doesn't look
really
like it.
notices
Okay.
it, but yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's there.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
That's huge.
So we got that going on. Any questions on the main West Main Avenue Trail? Let's move off of that. It's a sore spot right now. But it's coming along.
Oh, yeah.
McMahon is our consultant on that and our architect. So they're working on that. And one of the things that we are doing, just as an FYI, with the property rights acquisition, in case we do ever go for additional DOT funding in the future, is depending upon if we're doing it in-house or if we're applying for DOT funding. If we apply for DOT funding, which is also federal funding, you have to acquire property a certain way. And I'm not all up on that, but it's different than if it was just us doing it without any grants. We could just write up an agreement and, make them an offer. They would either accept it and we'd go back and forth and hopefully they would eventually accept the offer, and then we can just, we've got the easement rights. Well, there's a certain way with DOT grants that you need to acquire property. So, and if in the future you want to do it for another part of the trail, any parts of the trail that were acquired historically before that need to have been acquired per those DOT standards. So, yeah, so anything that we're acquiring right now, so I think there's 3 pieces of property between Sand Acres Drive and Ridge Road, Monroe Truck being one of them. So any right of way that we need to buy, we're going to follow those DOT standards in hopes that, if we get a chance to do another DOT grant at some point in the future, then that will suffice for how that connective property was acquired. So that was a different one as well. So all kinds of twists and turns on that one.
Mm-hmm. So any questions on West Main, anybody?
Well, I wasn't gonna ask it, then I wasn't. What's the usage right now of the streets and the people who use it? Is it the people who live in Sand Acres? Is it the people who work? I'm just curious about the usage in the area and who would be using it.
Well, for the trail, the trail is actually pretty busy. You've got the whole area behind Monroe Truck, the whole Sand Acres neighborhood are using all of those trails a lot, quite a bit. You've got a lot of the folks who live west of Packerland. If you take West Main down to the end right before you hit Lden, you've got all those apartments in there and condos. A lot of those folks I see using the trail systems. Even the folks in the Waterford Park Pioneer School area, I see a lot of them using that trail system. They use the Industrial Park Trail, and then they cross over onto Main and go into the Sand Acres. A lot of them use that just to go to Sand Acres Park.
Do they walk or do they bike?
Both.
Both. I'm going to say more biking than walking.
Yeah.
Okay.
But also, and I think this is public information. There's probably a good chance that Highland Ridge will turn into a 9-hole golf course versus 18, and the northern part of that golf course is going to be developed with housing. So there's even going to be more housing in there.
Okay.
So more housing, more people, more amenities needed.
Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. Any other question, West Main? Otherwise, we will go on. For the 2021 general maintenance work, I did talk to Doug about this, and this discussion came up, I guess, at your last meeting when you're talking, Randy, about the push buttons at the different intersections and wanting them touchless type, and then the cost to go ahead and do that. I talked to Doug, and it sounds like they will be doing an inventory of all the signalized intersections in the village of Ashwaubenon, which is great. And one of the things they are going to look at is They're looking to get countdown timers on all of the ped buttons. Are you all familiar with what those are? So if you push a button, then the timer shows numbers. It'll count down until you have 18 seconds, 19, 12, whatever, to get across the intersection. It gives you an idea of how long till it changes. They'd like to get countdown timers on all of the signals, and they're doing one of the inventory things would be to see which ones have that and which ones do not. I had asked them if we could talk about it by PED, because if they're gonna be out there doing an inventory, I think there's some other things that they can check while they're out there doing the inventory. And some of the things that I came up with that I thought would be important for them to check while they're out there is, do they have an automatic push button on there that people can get to? So are the push buttons accessible? So that's something they can check when they're out there looking at it. So is there a paved surface to that button that someone could get to it? Is it a push button? If you use those, some of them have just like a rubber top over the top of them, and you push it and then it gets into the system. It doesn't tell you that it's activated or anything. And then some of the new ones have a light goes on or you hear a beep and you know that you've pushed the button and you've got the system working for you. So it'd be nice to know that which ones have which, because it would be best for the village if they have the ones that either beep or light or do both, so that people know that they activated it. One of the other things is to make sure that they are ADA compliant, so that everybody can get to that button and they can push it, and they can actually push that button and make sure they can get across. So someone in a wheelchair or someone on the walker can get there. Another thing I thought would be important, what jurisdiction is responsible for that signalized intersection? We have state ones in our community, we have county, and we also have local. So who is responsible for that? Who's responsible to take care of it and do any improvements that are needed? The other thing I was thinking that would be important is how many sidewalks come into that area? Is it all four corners that have sidewalks? Are there any paths coming into that intersection? Because that obviously impacts pedestrian and bicycles that are going to be there, and therefore it's even more important to have those buttons there and have them accessible. And then another thing is whether the crosswalk is marked or unmarked. So obviously a marked crosswalk has the lines in it and they have horizontal lines, but just noting that in their survey as well, because that can give us a whole bunch of information on, because Doug was saying they'll use that information to decide which ones they're going to tackle first. What they're going to try to hit, what's the most important, which ones they want to do some improvements that will make it easier for people to use them throughout the community. So those are some of the things that I came up with. Does anybody have anything else that you would like put in when they do the inventory you think is important for them to check when they're out there looking at those intersections? I know for Randy, he was talking about the touchless ones, and there's an expense for that. Then the other option for the village is to put them on automatic, that they automatically go. You don't have to touch the button at all. There's no cost for redoing it, but you just it's part of the signal system. So that's an option, and to do that and not have to spend the money on a touchless one. So those are some of the things that I was thinking with Doug that would be important if they're doing the inventory to note those, because then if it comes back to this committee, you guys have some really good information that you can look at and say, okay, this intersection needs this. Like Kyle, for instance, the one on Oneida Street in Morris that's you've asked about several times. That
Yes.
one's not
In the flower bed?
In the flower bed, yep. Yeah. So, like I said, I don't know if there's anything else you guys can think of that would be really important for them to be checking. If they're out there, we might as well have them do it all at one time rather than saying, oh, did you check this? Or this would be important. So, anything else, anybody, or any questions? Or I know Randy's not on the call. I talked to him a little bit last night about it. And just to get things moving a little bit is his biggest thing. So I guess one of the questions I would have too is to talk to Doug and see when he thinks he could get the survey done. And I asked him, I said, how many intersections are we talking about? And I don't really have a feel for that. Is it 30? Is it 20? Is it 80? I don't know. It doesn't seem like it's that many, but maybe there are more than I'm thinking of. So maybe getting a feel from him when that information could be compiled and can come back to the committee. And see if, even if they could do it, early in 2021, because then they can start getting that into the construction documents and, whatever needs to be done to start picking off some of those intersections.
Tracy, I guess I haven't been looking at any of the road projects, street projects, whether it be resurfacing or whatever that the village is going to be doing. But it seems to me that the priority intersection should be on the streets where the work is going to be done the next year or two, because I think it's a lot easier to do it when you're out there working than to say, oh, we were there last year. If we'd have known, we could have done it then.
Okay, so really look at the intersections and look at what the construction plans are for that intersection as well, and coordinating all of that. And trying to.
And Doug has been using our plan for that. So that's why it's important to keep that plan updated.
Okay.
And go through it. Which is what the committee's been doing.
Yeah. I know Doug had said they aren't taking on like a lot of bigger projects in 2021 just because of the whole COVID and revenues down and all of that, but and they're going to try to pick off some of the smaller ones that, going back to our older infrastructure and saying, what do we really need to do to bring this up to standard? So he had said that they're going to look at some of that, like Kyle, the intersection at Morrison, Oneida, that was one that he had talked about, and trying to make sure that gets taken care of in 2021, because it is, no one can get to that button if they're in a wheelchair or a walker.
Yeah.
Okay, so anything else, anybody that we would like to include, or any other comments or questions on that? Okay, Rex, anything else you got on project update or anything?
No, I got a couple small things I can just do that for department.
Okay. All right, so then we'll go on to department reports with Rex from Park and Rec.
All right, just a couple little things that are going on. I think I mentioned this at the last meeting, but we did a little, maybe about 150 yards maybe of additional trail at Hidden Valley along Skylark there. Going into the woods, we have that first loop. We have like a section of trail that we put in outside of the woods. So now you can do you can either go into the woods or kind of just stay on the grass area. I don't know if you even noticed that.
I noticed that, yeah, it's very nice.
Yeah, a lot of people are actually using it, which I'm excited to see. It was just approved at Village Board last Tuesday night, and the guys just finished it up today. Is we extended, if you ever go out to the sports complex and do any walking out there, you've got that gravel trail that goes down the side of the skateboard park and kind of goes towards the cricket field. And it goes around the backside of the softball diamonds. It kind of stops about halfway into the softball diamond exterior fence, and then you can go into the complex, into the softball area. Well, we extended that exterior trail to keep on going straight to the south. So it goes south, kind of goes up the hill into the soccer field area. If you know where those big pine trees are on the western part of the soccer area, those two fields. So it goes up into that area and then takes a quick hard jog to the east and then connects to the restroom area. So now what that's done is it's kind of made a circuitous loop on the trail, because once you get to the restroom area, now you can take the sidewalks back to the skateboard park. So it's just more designated walking area, I guess. So I just was out there this afternoon and took some pictures of it, which I'll try and put up on Facebook. I put some up last week of the trail that was dug out. They just finished up putting the crusher dust in right now. Eventually, I think out there at the sports complex, I'd like to put a trail along the western border of the western soccer field, kind of where the ridge line, the wood line is, although it's a little bit of a slope there, so I don't know what we can do, but I'd like to put that something there all the way and go all the way around the soccer fields as well, and make a big loop that way, almost like a giant figure 8. But that's something we got going on too. I was happy this year that we had the weather and the village board gave us to go ahead to put that little extension in this past week, though. That was part of the comprehensive outdoor recreation plan as well, so we were able to knock that one off. Other than that, trail-wise in the park, I don't, or if I can try to comment, I don't think that's it for this year.
That's good, thank you. DOT, I don't think we have a rep for DOT in March. Should we take that off the agenda, or do it should remain?
That's been discussed, and I think isn't there a gentleman out there who is?
Matt Halada?
Yeah, we have a person who is willing to come on board with us if there's a issue or a question,
Okay.
Like to come to a meeting or something,
Okay.
but it's not something that they're going to come to on a month. It's when they're called upon, they will try and get someone.
Okay.
So whether or not we want to have them on, or whether we just want to add them on as needed, I don't think we need to have them on all the time, because they're not going to be here unless they're asked.
Yeah.
But my opinion.
Okay. All right, Ashwaubenon Public Safety, Jason is here. Anything on your end?
Yeah, this might be more for Rex, but the lights that are by the bar district, who's in charge of those? Is that Ashwaubenon's or Brown County's?
You mean on Holmgren?
Yeah, the decorative lights over there. They haven't been working for about a month. And about 3 weeks ago, we almost had a fatality accident there. And we've sent a couple of emails here and there, and we're sort of at a dead end on where we need to go from there.
I mean, they're WPS lights, but I don't know if they're owned by us. I'll have to ask Doug on that one. Did you talk to Doug about it at all?
I know we sent Liam a message, and there's a couple messages that went out, but they've been out for a month, and it's really dark in that bar district, even when those lights are on.
I would give Doug a jingle on that one, Jason, Doug Martin, and I'm wondering if maybe something was cut or nicked when they were doing Mike McCarthy Way construction. Maybe, I don't know, but that something might have happened there with that type of work going on.
Okay.
But Doug would know right away in terms of whose responsibility those are.
And then just a thought with that same area, I don't know how often everybody drives that area at midnight, but that even when those lights are on, it's very dark in that area, and the people are going back and forth across that street. I don't know if there's a way we could get, they're not going to listen to crosswalks. Most of them are intoxicated, but maybe some additional lighting or something. The stadium view has that extra light on the post that we could turn on, and we do on busier nights, but I'm thinking more down by the bar, that area.
So would it help? Because a lot of those some of those street lights still may be more of the yellowish glow. Would it help if we asked them to change them out to LEDs that has more of a white light that might show up, might be brighter?
That would be. It's just a very.
Or if the poles are able to take a higher wattage bulb as well. I mean, there's a couple different options there. Again, that would probably be a question for Doug.
Yeah.
Okay.
But those are two questions I would pose to him. Maybe changing them out to LEDs. And then or higher wattage on that stretch.
We'll look at that. Thank you. That's all I had.
Okay. I know in some of the parks, we've had the option that there's been some extra activity in some of the parks. We've asked WPS to change the bulb out to a higher wattage, and they've done that. So maybe that's something that is doable. I don't know. Park lights are street, I mean, it's the same thing. They're street lights, so that might be doable.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. Yeah, just check with Doug and hopefully he can help you out on that and get it taken care of.
Will
So
do.
I'm sure it's busy over there, and then like you said, yeah, the alcohol to it, so the more light you have on it, probably the better. Okay, schools, no one's here from the schools.
I don't think we have a,
We don't have a rep.
no.
All right. And Wello, Natalie is not here either. Okay, we don't have any public, but any comments on biking and walking in the community?
Just as a heads up from Woodside, we did apply for a walking, like a grant for senior communities to get like our residents to be out and about, because we have that path that goes around Woodside, just for some additional different like benches and some things like that, or to extend our path. And one thing that came up when we applied for the grant, they take a picture of like the aerial view. And one thing that they had commented on it was that where the sidewalk across from the football field kind of ends, where our driveway goes towards Bay Area Place there. And they took it during the day when they were in school. It must be a picture, I'm assuming, from actually like it looked like it was like last winter or fall, because there were cars all over. They were questioning if that sidewalk would ever be continued across there. And I don't believe we have that on any of our plans or anything like that. But that was one thing that they had questioned, if we would at some point do something with our path that goes around our campus to kind of make it go across and down that corner to then loop back up, just to make our path a bit larger. So I'll keep you guys kind of updated as we go forward with this process. Because obviously that path, I'm sure, would then be used by all the high school kids. Because right now, to be honest, they use our driveway. They cut down the driveway to go over to their cars that are parked over on, what is that, Bay Area Place there. So if we created that path longer, I think it would probably be utilized by all the high school kids too.
Is that something you would want?
To be honest, I never really thought about it until we had that. The meeting was actually about 2 hours before our meeting. So I hadn't really thought about extending it that far out or how that would go. I know the first thing our maintenance guy asked is who would maintain it. So, I think that's where, it'd probably be something that if we're going to go forward with it, or if, that's the route they recommend us to go, we would then probably come to the village and figure out what makes sense, if it's makes sense for the village to do part of that, or if we should be putting it on like a village plan, or if that's something that really would just be more used for like internal use. But after looking at it, I was like, yeah, in all honesty, extending that kind of through and over there probably would be used for more of a community use, not just exclusively like a Woodside walking path for our seniors. So as more kind of comes up with that, I can kind of bring it back to the committee, but that might be something we look at adding as something as maybe a possible want, especially with all the kids that park there and kind of park down and around that corner. It might not actually be a bad idea, because then that would connect them up to the crosswalk that they use that then crosses over into the school.
So I apologize. I'm having a hard time picturing exactly where you're talking about, and I know you're not ready to do anything formal yet, but would you be able to just print off like a map, do like a little dotted line of what you're potentially proposing for
Sure.
our next meeting?
Yes, I can do that.
Then we could probably even have that as just a agenda item discussion.
Sure.
That sounds great. So when will you find out about the grant at all?
We don't know right now. We applied for it. We talked with them today, and then now we're kind of just in the waiting process to see. So it's for the walking trails, and then for like paths throughout our campus and community, and then also just for some of like the bikes for seniors that, I don't know if you saw them like on Facebook at all, but like where they kind of hook to the wheelchair and you can pedal them around. So we're really the only one in this area that has applied for it, because the majority of big senior campuses are like more in like southern Wisconsin. There aren't a lot of bigger campuses like ours that kind of have like the 18 acres to even have a path to do this kind of stuff on. So I'm, crossing my fingers and trying to be hopeful that since we're kind of the only one in this area, that hopefully we have a good shot at getting it. But they're still accepting applications for the grant through the end of the year. So I don't think they'll be making a decision until the beginning of next year.
Well, good luck with that. That sounds like a great grant to put forward, so you guys will get it. If you need anything from us or like the village to, I don't know if they take letters of recommendation or something, maybe if you have a letter from the village, supporting it, if that helps us, so the village would be happy to help out with that.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so anything else under public comments?
I guess I have just one other thing, since we have a little more time, and this is kind of directed at Rex. I live near Sherwood Forest Parkway and go through there, ride the gravel paths on my bike a lot, and cross the boardwalks. And I've noticed that there are sort of footpaths that have developed through the park that are kind of nice, like single track mountain bike trails. And I don't know who's doing them, or just a lot of people walking, and walking dogs and walking kids. But I notice if I go through there once in a while, if there's a branch that's kind of hanging over the trail, the next time it's not. And I guess I don't know if you're aware of that, or have you taken a look at that? They're nice paths, and that's kind of, people have decided there's where we want to use the park. So
We have noticed that. In fact, I walked in Sherwood Forest just a week or two ago, and it seems like every time I walk in there, and the same with
there's another one.
Same with Hidden Valley. There's another one that all of a sudden has popped up. So people are creating them on their own. Now, I don't want to say it's a problem, but the problem with that is that's great that they're doing that they're exploring, but they're not a true pathway approved by the village in terms of safety or accessibility or materials, or does it cross a wetland area? Because all Sherwood Forest is wetland. So I guarantee you, probably a lot of these trails that are in there that are being created by just people walking are directly on wetland. So it's something that we've noticed, but we haven't taken action on, because once we start maintaining that trail, Kyle, or kind of clearing it out, then it becomes our trail.
No, I'm not thinking that you should. I'm not suggesting that you should. I guess I just want to know you were aware of it.
We are, and here's, I'm actually meeting John Wader from Stantec at Sherwood Forest this week. One thing that, because I don't know if we're going to have enough money to do it or not, but one thing that we're looking potentially at doing, I should have maybe done this in department reports, is putting in a trail on the north side of the pond. So you'd have a whole circuitous loop around the pond with a little footbridge going across the channel that drains into the pond.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that.
So we're looking at doing that. We've gotten some money. We've got some park development funds that we can use. We think that it's a little bit of a stretch, but we think we can use some park development for that. And then we've got some money from that cell tower that was put in across the street that we can use for that. So we just don't know if it's enough. And the challenge with that is, because that is considered a navigable stream, that channel that goes in there, any footbridge or path where we think we wanted to put it in, we probably can't put it in, because it has to be 5 feet above the ordinary high water mark, even though there's hardly any water there at certain points in the year. So now we would have to put that bridge in closer to the pond where the banks are higher, but the stretch is longer, which means a longer bridge is going to be more money. It's not going to be a simple footbridge anymore. So you might have to have some concrete abutments to put the bridge. So there's a couple things to try and figure out on there. Sorry, I know we're going off track a little bit, but yeah, there's a lot of trails in there. I've seen a lot of the trails. We've checked a couple of them out and found some encampments sometimes on those trails. like mattresses and blankets and things like that. So not really sure what was all going on back there, but we are aware of them. A couple things are growing back there, from what I heard.
You had to check on that. Anything else, anybody? Any other comments on anything? Okay, then our next meeting is scheduled for Monday, December 7th, 2020. Nothing else, then I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
I make the motion.
A second, anybody?
I'll second.
Moved in second, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? I'm in it. Thank you, everybody. Have a nice Thanksgiving. We'll see you. Thank you. We'll see you in December. Thank you.